Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/divorce, where OP's cheating wife is now suffering the consequences of her affair. Let's begin. Cautionary stories for cheaters, too smart to get caught? Posted by Reddit user Enthusiasm Low.
This is a true story. This happened slightly before the age of cell phones for context. At the time of my story, me, brother, mom, and dad. My family was the poster child for average middle class. Mom worked in a factory and my dad drove a delivery truck. Money was always tight, but my brother and I were blissfully oblivious. The company my dad worked for was a locally owned company that was doing well, and they started buying up a few other smaller outfits around the state. My dad was promoted, got a nice raise, a company car and such. He was now working out of town a few times a month at the various new locations. Life was going great, we had money. We started sometimes going to the lake on the weekends. My dad was always in a really good mood. Then during a 4th of July long weekend, my dad was working. My mom, brother and me are going to my mom's brother's house for the 4th. He and his family live in an adjoining state about 4 hours away. After driving for a couple hours, we stopped for dinner in the town that is on the state line. We pulled into a pizza restaurant, got out of the car and walked up to the door. As my brother was reaching for the door, it swung open from the inside. It was so surreal and still burned into my mind to this day. My dad is pushing the door open for a lady and her small children, as they are all leaving the restaurant. I don't remember much of what happened next, but I do remember we just all knew. Even clueless 13-year-old me knew. 100 freaking miles from home, at the exact same moment, a door separated my dad from his old family and his new family. I guess life really is stranger than fiction.
And then, we have this comment exchange between OP and Reddit user Paturuzu that gave us more details.
I totally believe it. I got experiences as weird. Hope someone told your mom. What was his reaction? What happened after? I honestly don't remember the remaining weekend, but it was followed by a few months of nightly arguing and divorce a few months later. She was a secretary at the company's local office. They both got married, lost their jobs but stayed together until they both passed a few years ago. My mom swore she would never marry again and have to live her life on eggshells trying to keep a husband happy, and she didn't. My mom died 2 months ago, so now I feel free to tell my story. The kids were not his but hers from some other guy. I never claimed her as my stepmother, nor the children as step whatever, but no drama. In another strange twist, after I was married, they just sort of slowly worked their way back into our lives. No big Hollywood confrontation, they just slowly became part of our lives. Now for the twist, my wife and I always laughed. They were our children's best grandparents. Always part of their lives, just stopping by to see the kids and such. Coming to see their games. Odd. Your mom was okay with that. At the time she was devastated at the affair and cheating for at least a year or two. Over time, she sort of took the attitude that he was a jackass in general. A grumpy jackass of a husband, and now he was someone else's problem. Were her feeling hurt him being back around? No, I don't think so. Me getting married and having kids was 20 years later.
The tables have turned and I feel bad. Posted by Reddit user Something Broken.
The past month of dealing with my wife's infidelity and the breakup of our marriage has been a whirlwind of emotions. I started out hurt and angry. I raged against her until there was nothing left. I threw every biting insult I could think of at her. Then I was sad because of the loss of our marriage, of the ideal of what it could have been. I recognize my part in everything and I just wish it could have been different. I dealt with jealousy and feelings of inadequacy as I saw her going out with her new partner. I wished it was me she could be happy with while wondering what was so wrong with me. Almost from the beginning I knew this was ultimately the right choice. We would be able to be better parents to our children and better people without being married. I didn't think I could ever forgive her or want to even be around her, but I knew we could at least be civil and polite at the very least. The anger, frustration, jealousy, and regret have all but disappeared. There might be a momentary flare-up, only to be doused by the certainty this is the right decision. When I think of my wife, the only way I can describe it is neutral. Not good or bad, she simply is. Things changed a few days ago. I made a comment that our relationship going forward would be primarily a business one. There are logistical and financial arrangements regarding our children that will keep us bound to each other beyond our marriage. That doesn't mean it had to be cold or emotionless. Only there was a certain level of distance to be kept and a focus on handling everything fairly and equitably. That opened a floodgate. She started saying how I would be better off, finally be rid of her. She parroted all the horrible things I said to her as if she believed them to be true. I tried to explain or apologize, which only made her double down on the negativity. I found out she's not with her partner any longer and she seems to have lost all hope for the future. I can't lie and say I didn't want her to hurt and suffer. I said those things to make her feel even a fraction of what she was putting me through. I felt justified in my anger, but it wasn't right. I exploited her deepest fears and anxieties. She's been my partner for 20 years and she's the mother of my children. I still love her and want her to have a successful and happy life. How could I feel any differently for someone that has meant so much for so long? I feel I went too far. What I said didn't matter while she felt the thrill of being with someone new. I told her that feeling wouldn't last. I had no idea it would fizzle out so quickly. Now alone with her thoughts and the reality of her life post-divorce, she's spiraling. I don't feel good or satisfied about any of it. I remain committed to seeing this divorce through for good, but I no longer want to hurt her or see her suffer in any way. While I don't excuse what she did, I do understand she was hurting in her own way and trying to find some shred of happiness. We're all human, trying our best in an unforgiving world. My anger or hatred wouldn't help either of us, so I've let it go. Maybe she'll be fine. This might be the wake-up call that leads her to face her own anxieties and negative behavior. It might teach her to be more self-sufficient and practical. I hope it does. I also hope I didn't inadvertently nudge her over the edge. I don't want to see her suffer.
OP, don't feel bad about the things you said or did. She didn't give a rat's ass about you while she was having her affair. She didn't care that it would destroy her children's home. So why should you care that she is now suffering the consequences? Look man, you should just focus on your kids and stop giving her attention. She doesn't deserve it. And now for today's final story. My best and oldest friend stopped talking to me because my husband got COVID before her wedding, and things got rocky. Posted by Reddit user Cromther.
This is a long one. My friend, let's call her Carly, has been in my life off and on since kindergarten. We used to go to the same daycare program, then wound up back in the same class in junior high and have been best friends since. There have been times where we lost touch for a while. She went to college about an hour away. I was working 3 jobs at one point, but kept in touch on social media, and when we'd have time together, things would pick right back up. In summer 2021, her long-term boyfriend proposed. They'd been together for 9 years, and my own boyfriend and I were berating him in a lighthearted, joking way to propose. We didn't feel right getting engaged before them since we'd only been together 4 years, and since her boyfriend kept saying he would ask soon. We didn't want to steal their thunder. He finally proposed, and a couple of months later in October 2021, my boyfriend proposed. That January I was diagnosed with cancer, and for insurance purposes, we decided to speed things up and get married in May 2022. My best friend and her fiancé would get married in October 2022, so our wedding wound up being before theirs. She seemed totally fine with this and even sent me a ton of specialty ice cream when I got the news. For our wedding, we decided to have a small backyard affair with just our closest family members, and I asked Carly to be my maid of honor and only bridesmaid, while my fiancé had his younger brother as his best man. No other wedding party, just parents, grandparents, and siblings as guests, but I still wanted the day to feel special and got a big gown. I took Carly dress shopping and let her pick out her own dress and paid for it because she has a disease that limits her mobility, and I wanted her to look and feel her best. We don't make a lot of money and Carly has a lot of privilege, but it was important to me to pay for that plus hair and makeup because I wanted to show my appreciation. The day before our wedding, Carly saw that my mom, who we all know is a narcissist, was insisting that she get to make a toast. She was sending me article after article about wedding etiquette. Carly suggested I let her and other people do toasts if they wanted, and I asked if she'd be comfortable toasting. With such a small guest list, it would be weird if my mom was the only person who spoke, and I had a suspicion she wouldn't speak at the last minute anyway. She agreed. That morning on the way to hair and makeup, I walked her through my fiancé's family members and shared that the best man was recently sober and I was struggling to reconcile some things that had been said and done when he was still addicted and quite toxic. We also talked about how my fiancé and I met. I was dating a friend of his in high school and years later wound up briefly dating one of his roommates, which is when we ran back into each other. She'd known this already, but as girls do, we rehashed. The rest of the day went off without a hitch until the speeches. My mom had nothing prepared and improvised by simply saying that she knows my husband married someone who likes to read and is very dramatic. Oh, and is kind, an afterthought after some agonizing silence. Carly jumped in and acted like this was a celebrity roast. She aired out my brother-in-law's dirty laundry, called me a homie hopper and so on. No one laughed, just more awkward silence, and then brother-in-law jumped in to say some actually nice things and we moved on to dinner. Her speech bugged me and I brought it up a few days later. She said she had no idea what she did wrong because she only said what I'd told her that very morning. She's always had a dry, sort of mean sense of humor, so I let it go. Then we started planning Carly's wedding. I paid for myself for everything and there were a few unexpected expenses that I didn't have time to prepare for. I wrote her a really nice speech for her bridal shower and afterwards, she glared and said she'd forgotten about those things and it's weird of me to remember. I didn't want to make a big deal out of what could just be my own insecurity, so I kept the sour taste to myself and focused on making her happy. 2 days before the wedding, she and the bridesmaids, myself included, went out for dinner and drinks to finalize day of plans for timing, hair and makeup, transportation, etc. She mentioned being concerned about getting home from the reception and I volunteered to sober cab. My husband is sober anyway and it was a very short distance and she ignored me, hesitated when I offered a second time, then said they'd just figure something else out. Again, a little weird but not really a big deal. That night, I got home and my husband wasn't feeling well. He is a homebody gamer, but I suggested he take a COVID test to be sure. It came back positive. I texted Carly and she freaked out. I felt so badly for her and did everything I could to support her from a distance. I told her I didn't have any symptoms and tested negative, but she still didn't want me to come to her wedding. I told her that was totally fine and I understood. She stopped talking to me altogether and said she needed time. I apologized again and left her alone. Then I found out via social media she canceled her wedding. It was supposed to be a huge, day-long multi-room affair at a big mansion and she instead opted to get married in a park with just a handful of people. She had rehearsal dinner as planned. The entire wedding party was there and what looked like maybe 30 other people. No one bothered to tell me. A couple weeks later, we had a joint birthday party. Both of us plus another friend share a birthday month and she kept her distance and was relatively cold and polite. We didn't talk except when other people naturally assumed we were talking and brought us into a conversation together. I left early and continued to give her space. A few more months go by and we send each other TikToks but otherwise don't talk much. It's been over a year now and I want to clear the air. I sent her a TikTok about a new ramen place that opened nearby and asked for a dinner date and she agreed, but said she was booked so it would need to wait a couple of weeks. Then she rain-checked and then canceled the next date because she wanted to get some garden boxes installed. I told her to just follow up when she had time. It's been a couple more weeks now and radio silence. My husband says she's been a shitty friend and that I should drop her. This all seems small and petty for a 20-plus year friendship that's never had a single fight. I'm autistic and have trouble gauging social relationships as is. Should I reach out to her or let her come to me or give up altogether? Thank you to anyone who read this far. TLDR, my best friend of over 20 years was acting weird and then stopped talking to me for a full year because my husband got COVID a couple days before her wedding.
You are correct, OP. You have known her for over 20 years, meaning she also changed as an individual. She is no longer the same person you met when you were 6. So maybe your adult personalities don't mix as well as it once did. Forget about the sunk cost fallacy. You don't have to stay best friends with her. Normal childhood friends would be more than enough. And your husband is right. He doesn't want to see you getting rebuffed, ignored, and hurt by anyone. Leave your memories in the past and make new friends who suit you as an adult. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.